Well, this was fun. I think this was my favorite one.
This was, yeah.
I liked a little bit of contention in it. And can I just add, if we weren't on the same page, there's still room for both of us.
Oh, totally.
I just feel like that's so important.
Welcome to Spot Me Sis, the podcast where real conversation meets real growth.
We're Michaela and Britt. We're moms, business owners, and friends who work out together, and we believe that everything gets stronger when you put in the reps.
From faith and finances to mindset, motherhood, and all of the messy middle, these are the conversations that happen between sets, and now we're bringing them to you.
Around here, we believe growth happens when you stretch your muscles and your mindset.
So grab your favorite drink and let's get into it.
Hello, and welcome back to the Spot Me Sis podcast.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Today's episode is sponsored by Instant Pot because that is Michaela's favorite way to cook.
Yeah. It is one of my top favorite things. Just makes, I can't
You can just set it and forget it.
Set it and forget.
Isn't that a motto for something? Set it and forget it.
I feel like it is.
I'm going to Google it.
Set it and forget it. If not, it should be. Well, Instant Pot too. Set it and forget it. It's nice. Okay, so what are we talking about today, Britt?
We're talking about stewardship. We're talking about being content versus not being content. Mm-hmm. We're talking about fullness. That was another word that I wanted to talk about. Feeling full, being full in what you have, or like what brings you fullness.
Like fulfilled, like fulfillment. Okay.
But when I looked up fulfillment in the scriptures, it was all about the Savior fulfilling his role on the earth. And so I kind of like took it down to just fullness, feeling full.
Okay, cool.
So where do you want to start?
So let's start with maybe the content.
Okay. You found a talk for that. You knew as soon as I said you thought of a talk for that.
Yeah, because it's one of my all-time favorite talks.
Okay.
So it's called Divine Discontent, and it's by Michelle D. Craig. She's the first counselor in the Young Women General Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So she gave this talk in the October 2018 General Conference, and it has just, it's like, you know, like there's certain talks that just stick with you.
Yes.
And this is one of those for me. And so as soon as you said, contentment, you know, I'm like, oh, I know. I know the one I want to talk about. So I want to hear your thoughts first before we like start pulling things from that talk. I want to hear your thoughts about
Okay,
that.
so when I initially said contentment, like being content, I was going a different route. And then you had brought up this talk, and this is also an incredible route to go. So I think there's both sides we could talk about. What I had initially thought of was being content in that you don't have to compare yourself to others. You don't have to have the next best thing. I mean, for us, it's Christmas time right now, and we have lots of people around us spending money. Lots of my clients are just racking up credit cards, whatever it is. And so I think there's a piece of that that's so important, to just be content with what's important. And this is where the fullness ties into it, of what makes you full, what makes your heart full, what fulfills your purpose. All of those things, it's not material items, it's not comparing to other people, it's a fullness of your heart with your family and with the Savior. And if you are able to focus on that, you're able to be content in the physical material world a lot more. And so that was kind of where I was going with it.
Okay.
And I love this talk that you brought up. So let's go there, because mine's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I like those thoughts. I think just because of my personality type, I don't resonate as much with like just like feeling content. Like some people, and this kind of ties into like Enneagram types a little bit as well, but like some people, that's what they want to feel. Like, I just want to feel content. I just want to feel comfortable. And I'm like, I don't resonate with that. Like,
so what do you want to feel? What do you want to feel?
I think for me, the word content just makes me feel like I'm settling, maybe.
Okay.
So I want to feel like...
So you don't tie it to like a fullness?
Probably not.
For me, if everything is full in my heart, I don't need to make any changes. I don't want to make any changes. I'm so full that I'm content.
And I'm going to say, I know this is 100% because of my Enneagram type. Because I'm a type 4 and we're like always wanting to transform and change and like become better. And so I think there's always that like striving for more kind of a thing, which is good and bad, right? Like there's like in everything, it's there's good and bad in everything. And I would say more like, for me, I would probably replace that with peace. I feel like that would maybe
so you don't see those as similar. Like to me, they feel the same.
You know
Content
what?
and
I
peace.
should have done like an etymology kind of a thing. I
should have. You should look it up right now.
Give me like 1 minute and I'll find it.
Okay. So the reason I feel so strongly about this is because I think that not being content can steal a lot of our joy. It can steal our presence in the current moment. It can steal our gratitude for what we have right now. And I think that if we're always, like this talk that you're going to get into in a minute, there is a lot of good in wanting to grow and change and improve, and that should never be squandered either. And I think we were talking about this before we turned the cameras on, but it's about your intentions and why you're wanting to improve. Is it to improve because you just have to keep chasing something you can't feel fulfilled? Or is it because you truly want to just be better every day? And that's a strength that you have.
I mean, I have that desire. Do I always act on it? No. So just in the 30 seconds that I've glanced over this, okay? In Hebrew, which is one of the languages I like to use when I'm studying words, especially when, like, this is a word, obviously, that we see in the scriptures, like, all the time. And so Hebrew is very relevant, to go into. So the Hebrew word for peace is shalom. It means to be complete or to be whole.
Okay. And
then if we go to content, it is to rest or be satisfied. So, yeah, in my mind, they are very different. I think people...
To me, that just sounds like they're the same again.
So, resting and being satisfied doesn't mean that you're whole.
At what point should you rest? When the job's done? When you're whole? When you're complete?
I don't think so. Because, so... we know that damnation is literally to stop, right? Like there's no progression there. And so we know that eternal progression is like a law. I don't feel like there is ever a point when you're just like, okay, I'm done.
Well, God rested on the seventh day.
He rested, but he... Yeah.
That doesn't say stop.
You're right. It doesn't say stop. But I think, yeah. So then my question to you is like, at what point are you content and then not content again? Or is it, in your mind,
so
is it
are
like
you content forever?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, I feel like content is a very temporary thing.
Okay.
The way I'm seeing it.
Okay.
I think there's always a point where you should continue to work. And I don't see it as a stop. I see it as like I said, being in the present moment. Like I am very content. My mind's not wandering on the next best thing. My mind's not wishing I had more. I'm content right now in this unfinished, messy house.
Yeah.
With my kids, because that brings me a fullness.
Okay. I can get behind that.
But that is a good question. At what point does the content leave?
Yeah, because I think that's probably my problem with, and maybe it's just because of how I've heard it used a lot, where it kind of makes me feel like it's like this, like the content. I think this is what it is. I can put this into words. I think how I've heard it used a lot is that's like the goal. I just want to be content. And that's like the goal that people want to reach. But I'm like, but what about beyond that? Like you can't just stop there, right?
See, and I see it more of like an attitude. I want to be content. When I, like in that example I used, like an unfinished, messy house with my kids. I am so content in that moment because, like I said, my heart is full. And if I could wake up the next day and finish the house, nothing would stop me from that either. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is to have those things not detract from the fullness of your heart. I really feel strongly that like content is the fullness of your heart. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe
I can see
everyone
that.
disagrees. I'm not sure, but that's how I'm hearing it. That's how
yeah.
I'm seeing it.
I can see that. Listening to like how you describe it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little different than I think how I've seen other people use that word.
Okay.
So let's go to the divine discontent talk, because I think she does a really good job of kind of showing
why
like
it's okay to not be content. Actually, this is why we make such a good pair, because we are so different that I just, okay, you go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to quote a lot of this, like, on this episode, because she just says it, perfectly. So she's talking about these prophetic calls to action that we have when, the prophet, or I guess God through his prophets, is calling each of us to live and care in a higher and holier way and to take a step higher. And so she says these prophetic calls to action, coupled with our innate sense that we can do and be more, sometimes create within us what Elder Neil A. Maxwell called divine discontent. And here's the definition. Divine discontent comes when we compare what we are to what we have the power to become. So I thought that was really cool, because it's not what we are to what somebody else is. Mm-hmm. It's what we are right now to what we have the power to become. And then she says, each of us, if we are honest, feels a gap between where and who we are and where and who we want to become. We yearn for greater personal capacity. We have these feelings because we are daughters and sons of God, born with the light of Christ, yet living in a fallen world. These feelings are God-given and create an urgency to act. So I think that's like where it is for me, like the contentment can't be the end goal, because we are called to be
I think the
more.
key is that she adds the word divine in front of it.
Yeah.
So where I'm seeing it, content is not who I am, it's what I have. And where she's saying it divine discontent is who you are. And I 1,000% agree with all of this.
So you're going from so you're talking about material possessions, temporal, versus
everything
identity,
temporal,
spiritual.
Yes. And that's I think what I'm saying is that to be discontent in a worldly way should not detract from the fullness of who you are and your heart. And I think a lot of people are very tied to their things or their appearance or their whatever it is that it detracts. But this, to me, feels like a whole different topic, and I love it. I think keep going. Because
So I really love this because, I think aside from here's the thing. I would argue, and this is going to be a fun conversation for you and I to have, because I would argue that you can feel divine discontent in your temporal situations. Give
me an example.
Okay, this is going to go into our topic of stewardship, okay? I feel like, let's take money, one of your favorite topics, okay? I feel like you can be called from God to a higher and holier way with money, making more, because like the divine discontent comes in to better your situation, to make more money, because that is a tool that God has given us to help build his kingdom, right? And like to help other people. And so I feel like that divine discontent can come in the form of temporal things sometimes. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that the natural divine discontent that we can feel can also correlate to we need to make more money because I'm not who I'm meant to be yet.
Yeah.
I disagree.
And and money, I think, hang on, let me back up. First of all, everything spiritual, like everything temporal is spiritual. Everything's connected, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it is sometimes hard to have that black and white. I totally get where you're coming from with the possession stuff, right? Like I think that is a little separate. But I think,
tell me more. I don't know if I'm understanding what you're saying about
the money part.
Yeah, why? Yeah.
So I think, let me pull up a quote from her where I can like kind of
get your ammo.
Yeah. I'll just give an example, I guess, that I'm going to make up on the fly. I feel like if somebody has that feeling of discontentment with their situation, financial, whatever it is, health, whatever, okay? Something that is perceived as temporal. And if the motivation, we talked about this a little bit, like before this episode, but we talked about how the motivations are a big part of this, like that matters. But if the motivation is not comparison to other people, right? Or like, I need more stuff, then I feel like we are called to better our circumstances, because that puts us in a better position to help others and to build the kingdom more.
So I disagree with that.
Okay, why?
Because I think, and don't get me wrong, I want to make millions of dollars. I want to always be making more. I probably have a flaw how much I love money. I don't think, and I get the sentiment because I've heard this a lot. I don't think that having more money makes you more capable of serving. Now, there's always the discussion of like, well, the people who are called to be in the quorum of the 12, per se, they have set themselves up financially to where they can retire early, they can take care of themselves, and then all they get to do is focus on the Lord's work. And while I think that work is so critical and important, I don't think that someone who is making a fraction of that income and has a calling as the ward choir director, I don't think that person is any more or less capable of bringing to pass the most important steps of God's work. So I don't think that the amount of money that they have, I think it gives them very different opportunities, but I don't think that it gives them better opportunities.
Okay, so this is what I'll say that might help bridge our gap a little bit.
Okay.
I think divine discontentment, like, I don't think that means that everybody has to go out and make more money. And that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think this is where the stewardship and like and your unique gifts and everything kind of comes in, because not everybody's going to feel called to do that. But there are going to be, like, there are so many examples in our church and outside of the church of people who have been called and have acted on that to do something bigger like that, because they are called to have a greater impact in that way.
I agree. Yes.
And so I'm like, I'm not trying to say that, well, everybody needs to like elevate their status and earn more money and all of that. It's very individual, but I'm just saying.
So you're saying
individually,
just sometimes
that can look like divine discontent for individuals who have been called to do it in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I agree with that. I was hearing that, like, oh, you need to make more money to be more.
No. And I think
But you're right. Everyone has a different path, different callings, different.
So, yes. So what I'm just trying to get at is like this feeling of divine discontentment for some people that can look like in these temporal situations, because they
choosing
have
a different job, going. I agree.
Okay.
Yes, we are on the same page now.
Yay!
And can I just add, if we weren't on the same page, there's still room for both of us.
Oh, totally.
I just feel like that's so important. I think some people get so scared away by disagreements in the gospel. We've talked about this.
We would probably, just because of our personality types, walk away with us thinking, well,
we're right. I'm right.
But that doesn't mean we're going to argue about it and not be friends.
No. Anyway, yes. No, I actually agree with that. I do think there are, and because for that example that I used, there are some people that need to have that financial stability to do their next step in that way. So I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of just talk, like, one of the examples she shares in the talk, and this is just to kind of illustrate the point that it can be temporal and not just this identity-based, spiritual piece. She says, Jesus' miracles often begin with a recognition of want, need, failure, or inadequacy. Remember the loaves and fishes. Each of the gospel writers tells how Jesus miraculously fed the thousands who followed him. But the story begins with the disciples' recognition of their lack. They realized they had only 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? The disciples were right. They didn't have enough food, but they gave what they had to Jesus, and then he provided the miracle.
Okay, so this ties so perfectly. I told you this before we started, but David, the house of David.
Oh, yeah.
I watched the last episode last night, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I'm not going to spoil anything
really good.
because it's in the scriptures, okay? But David he comes to the land where the war is. I don't know the place. And
Was it Palace? Wasn't it the Palestinians? I don't know.
You literally are
Do not
asking the
quote
wrong
us.
person. And he shows up and he's there to help the king. And then he says to the king, I want to do this. And the king says, nobody else has offered. And the conviction that you have, I'm going to let you go and do it. And everyone's like, aren't you afraid? Like, why did he choose you, a boy? And he said, nobody else offered. I chose to do this. And people were asking, like, why would you do this? Who do you think you are? And he said, do you not believe in the God of Israel? Do you not believe that we are on the Lord's side, kind of a thing? And he's going to the river and he's finding his rocks. And then someone comes and talks to him and they say, like, aren't you scared? And he says, yes, I am scared. And he goes out and he takes a few steps and then he says, Lord, give me strength to take the next few steps, one step at a time or something like that. And he takes some more steps and he's scared. And it was just such an eye-opening thing where every miracle, every blessing, everything that we have starts with like a problem or an issue or something that needs to be solved. And if we don't come to the Lord and give our loaf or give our first step, he can't help us. He's there to help us after we've already done our part.
Well, it's either 12:27. Like, I give unto men weakness. You know why I remember that? Besides scripture mastery, which you didn't have the opportunity to go to seminary, so you don't.
No.
But had a lot of scriptures I had to memorize, and I'm really good at memorizing things, so they just stick with me because we would have songs about them, and if you put anything in a song, I'm going to remember it. But
That's helpful.
But I remember it because 12/27 is my birthday, and I have a lot of weaknesses, so that's how I remember it in my mind, so I'm never going to forget.
That episode of The Office where he says, penguin, big boobs. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of shows like that we both, like, you're kind of picky about shows.
Richard would agree.
Yeah,
yeah,
you are. And so a lot of the ones that I find hilarious, she's like, you either haven't seen them or like you don't.
Oh, like
them.
Parks and Rec or
Yeah.
Not a fan.
But The Office is one that. So I'm like, every time I send her like a meme, I try to make it The Office because it's something I know she'll laugh at.
Yes.
Anyway, so either 12:27, like, I give unto men weakness that they may be humble, right? And so it's exactly what you were saying. Like, we have to. That is the first step because we have to be able to recognize the weakness or the inadequacy or the gap there.
The gap, yeah.
In order for us to realize that, oh, hey, we do need Christ. Like, we do need a Savior, to come in and fill that gap, right? Yeah, I love that story of David because in her talk she says, divine discontent can move us to act in faith, follow the Savior's invitations to do good, and give our lives humbly to him. And again, that's going to look different for everyone. That can come in the form of like so many different forms.
Well, and who was it? The prophet Samuel that came to him?
Yeah.
And told him, hey, this is your big role that's coming up. Remember that scene where he came and he's like, these are not all of your sons. There's another son somewhere.
Yeah.
And when David comes, the prophet says, this is your big role and your next step. And those kinds of things like that just shows how individualized our plans are. But when the Lord gives you a prompting, kind of like you said, like, your plan is going to be different. And the promptings that you receive to reach those are going to be different from mine or anyone else's. So they are big asks sometimes, or they are unusual or around money.
They might not. Right. So somebody who is content in their financial situation doesn't mean they're not... that they're not striving to be better in other ways or even in that way, but somebody who feels satisfied and content and at peace might look at somebody else who is like, oh, I need more, and they might think that it's unrighteous, and it might be, because it goes back to the motivation behind it, right?
And we would never know.
But we don't know, like, maybe they are being called to that because they are meant to impact in that way, right? And so it's just, you never know, like, because everybody's so different and God has a plan for each of us and a purpose. And like, And she says this too, that I really wanted to bring this up. She says, have you ever felt your talents and gifts were too small for the task ahead? I have. But you and I can give what we have to Christ, and he will multiply our efforts. What you have to offer is more than enough, even with your human frailties and weaknesses, if you rely on the grace of God. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind too, that when you get these feelings of divine discontent, you notice this gap, of like, oh, I'm here, but I know that I'm meant for more. I know that I'm supposed to be better than this.
And
when
a lot
you
of
notice,
times that comes with feeling inadequate.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. So like when you have that feeling, and it does come from God, that's divine discontentment, right? Because it's moving you, like it's activating you to move. Then remembering that, like when you do feel that inadequacy, like, oh, who am I to do that? Or I don't have what's needed for that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the talents. I don't have whatever it is. It's the parable of the talents, right? Like God gave you these things, and with him, he will multiply and magnify your efforts. And it's David too with Goliath. Like David was willing to act in faith. And even though he was very inadequate as far as size and strength and all of that, right? Like experience, he had a lot of inadequacies that way if you were comparing him to Goliath. But he shouldn't have been comparing himself to Goliath. He should have been comparing himself to like, well, who am I supposed to be? And God's going to make up the difference.
And what was I called to do? Yeah. The reason I chose these topics to talk about today is because I was reading scriptures with my kids the other day, and I feel like this ties in so well. And I'm just going to read. This is in Doctrine and Covenants 104. Bear with me. It's 6 verses. It says that every man give an account unto me of the stewardship which is appointed unto him. For it is expedient that I, the Lord, should make every man accountable as a steward over earthly blessings which I have made and prepared for my creatures. I, the Lord, stretched out the heavens and built the earth. My very handiwork, and all the things therein are mine. And it is my purpose to provide for my saints, for all things are mine. But it must needs be done in mine own way. And behold, this is the way that I, the Lord, have decreed to provide for my saints, that the poor shall be exalted, and that the rich are made low. For the earth is full, and there is enough and to spare. I prepared all things, and have given unto the children of men to be agents unto themselves. Therefore, if any man shall take of the abundance which I have made, and impart not his portion unto the law of my gospel, unto the poor and the needy, he shall with the wicked lift up his eyes in hell, and being in torment. It's a little harsh at the end. But I think it's so important to remember that we might just give a crust to the Lord, or we might feel like we only have a crust. And it says in here, like, every man's stewardship is different. It's given to, like, what is given to each man is different according to what the Lord has desired to give us. Everything that we have is already from the Lord. Even temporal things, everything is spiritual. And I just have such a strong testimony that if it's not ours anyway, we should, and this is kind of branching off, but we should so happily and freely give what we have away. And to tie in with like earning more money or whatever, if we have all of that, if our desire is to gain all of that and then to share it, I think that's so good. One of the jokes my husband always tells about me is that I like to hoard money. Like I like to just keep it in piles and sit on it. And that's not what the Lord asks us to do, not with our money, not with our time, not with our talents. He gives us stewardship and agency, and I feel so strongly that agency is probably other than the atonement, one of the best gifts that we've been given. Because if we have all of these different things, that's the only way we're going to learn on our own paths, is the choices that we get to make. To pay our tithing, to pay generous fast offerings, to donate to the poor, to
not just monetarily either, but time,
give our
talents,
time and share and be willing to serve in a calling that you don't want to serve in, or visit your neighbor that you don't want to visit. Or I just think there's so many ways. Like the Lord gives us so many things, and we have the ability to choose if we're going to be good stewards of that or not.
Oh, that was a thought that I had, was with stewardship. Like, I think God gives us so many opportunities to be stewards. Like, I'm giving you these, like all these opportunities to be a good steward. And are we taking advantage of them?
And it's in so many ways too. When I was reading these scriptures to my kids, I used the example of they are his children and he gives me stewardship over them on this earth. And how many wrong ways could I use that or abuse that or take advantage of that? But I've been trusted to make the right choice. And how much harder would you want to work if you knew that like someone trusted you with that versus, I don't know, these are my kids and I had them.
Yeah. I like that. There's one more thing that I want to talk about with the divine discontent and like just to kind of, I don't know, further show the point of divine discontent versus like Satan's counterfeit, which she actually, I will bring that up really quick. She talks about Satan's counterfeit, which is, I think, discouragement. I'm going to go back. Yeah. So the difference, divine discontent, which is from God, will lead us to faithful action. It's not an invitation to stay in our comfort zone, nor will it lead us to despair. She says, I have learned that when I wallow in thoughts of everything I am not, I do not progress, and I find it much more difficult to feel and follow the Spirit, because Satan's counterfeit is that paralyzing discouragement, which kind of comes in with like shame too. The message is that you'll never be enough. You'll never be rich enough, smart enough, beautiful enough. And so divine discontent is not destructive. It's not meant to tear you down. It's meant to be very like motivating and inspiring. But then she goes on to say that divine discontent leads to humility. And I think this is going to be a point that you really like. It leads to humility, not to self-pity or the discouragement that comes from making comparisons in which we always come up short. And then she says, this is the surprising truth is that our weaknesses can be a blessing when they humble us and turn us to Christ. Discontent becomes divine when we humbly approach Jesus Christ with our want rather than hold back in self-pity. So I think that's a huge difference too. Like going back to like the motivation behind it is, are you wanting to make more money or become better or whatever it is? Like, because you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're like, I'm not enough. I'm never going to have enough. I need to be like this person. I need to keep up with the Joneses. Like those are all Satan's counterfeit, right? Like rooted in the wrong motivations, versus, oh, I'm noticing this gap. And I think like I'm feeling called to take this faithful action so that I can do more good.
And it is also, I should say, so okay to want. You should want. You should want for yourself because the Lord wants for you. He wants you to have blessings.
Yeah, I love in the doctrine, the verses that you shared in the Doctrine and Covenants, he talks about his abundance. Like,
yeah, there's enough to
cool.
spare.
Yes, and so you don't need to be in this
What's
hoarding.
that? Yeah, I don't have to hoard. And also, what is that? You said you've called it before, like a martyr mindset. Like I won't take because I don't want to take from someone else.
Yes,
and it's so not true. We can all be fulfilled and have purpose and have joy in this
having
life.
more joy, more money, more purpose, more whatever does not take away from anybody else's.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Yes, we should just end it right there because you're exactly right. We should all want and we should all, and that urge that we feel to improve is not a bad urge.
Unless it's out of comparison from other people.
Unless, thank you for circling back my point.
It all just comes back to the motivations, you know?
Yeah.
So if you can just be honest with yourself about those motivations, and again, like she said, like Sister Craig said, if it brings you to that humility to Christ, it humbles you and it turns you to Christ because you're recognizing that, oh, I alone am not enough, right? Like,
I keep having this thought come to me, and I feel like this is a good like call to action because we might not have a prophet come to us and say, you're it, you're the one, you're going to be the king of Israel, you're going to slay the giant. But you know what we can do is we can pray and we can ask, what is my next thing. This is what I want. How can I make that happen in line with your will?
Yeah. What's the next step?
Yeah.
Just the next step. You don't have to have like, and that's the thing is I feel like so often we, meaning I, okay, I'm going to speak from my experience here, but maybe other people will relate. I think we want like the whole plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of stay in like paralysis or like not taking action because we don't have all the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think God works like that. I don't think he ever has given the whole plan to anybody. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And so I think that's really important is like you said, just what's the next thing? In fact, I had somebody on my podcast a few months ago, and she shared, I can't remember exactly what her process is every day, but she has this habit that she like journals every day, and she asks God a question every morning. And I'm gonna have to go back and like listen to what it was, but it was something along those lines, like what step can I take today?
Well, there was a general conference talk about that too a while ago, and this woman, she said she would pray and she would say, what's my to-do list? And like I think she would even write the
that's
to-do.
like I think that's what it was. I think that's I mean she did this, but she may have gotten that idea from
her.
Yeah, from the talk. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and it was kind of just like, hey, these are kind of the things I'm thinking. What are you thinking? And
and it was like priorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you have to have like 10 things to do every day, but it's like these are the things that I would like to get done. What is the priority for you, for me?
And I think I want to challenge the thought that sometimes I know sometimes you don't get an answer, but I think that if you said, tell me one thing I can do today, I'm fairly certain throughout that day you're going to have a thought.
Yeah, and I will say, I think sometimes you might not get an answer right in that moment, but it's the action that brings the answer. So like if you don't get that answer right away, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to move forward
with the choices that I know are correct.
Yeah, I'm going to move forward with this plan, and I trust that as I move forward, if it's not the direction I'm supposed to go, like God will let me know, and He'll help me pivot.
And also to that, like sometimes the revelation that you can receive is not. If I go and I say, hey, I've really got to clean my house, I've got people coming, like, can you help me just do this in the best way, most time efficient? I don't know. And then that's what I'm focusing on all day. If I am asking God in my prayer, like, help me know what you want me to do, I know that I'm going to get a thought later that day. And it probably has nothing to do with whether to wash the sheets or the pillowcases first. It has to do with, hey, send that girl a text. And I think to be able to recognize that those are the promptings that sometimes we're going to get.
Yeah, that it might not have like, it might not be exactly what you were asking for.
Yeah.
But you're inviting him into what you're doing, which means he's going to give you that like light and knowledge and like those promptings. Because that allows him to grow you into the capacity that he wants you to grow. Yeah. Versus, hey, how can I make $1 million? That's how I want to grow. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay. Cool. Well, this was fun. I think this was my favorite one. This was, yeah. I liked a little bit of contention in it. Yeah, I welcome that a little bit. You know, when it's with somebody that you trust, respect. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. When you know that it's not going to like have this huge rift or. I love new perspectives. Yeah. Same. I like trying to understand people's perspectives. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that. All right. Well, hopefully our listeners enjoyed that too, because we're doing another one next week. Okay, you have it. We love you. We believe in you because we're in it with you. Doing the hard things, one rep at a time.
Well, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you're watching this podcast. And you can get to know us better and see behind the scenes at our Instagram at Spot Me Sis Podcast. See you next time.